You don't need a luxury kitchen to prepare gourmet meals. I want it a little on the sticky side. With a modest kitchen and some standard equipment, you can cook food that you would be proud to serve. There is my shrimp. All you need is a few helpful kitchen techniques, the ability to follow a recipe, a passion for food, and a fascination with cooking. Just follow along the rib cage. That is so good. My name is Dennis. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. I am going to fulfill another request today. This one came from someone named Bryson. So Bryson, this one's for you. He sent me a recipe for something called Chinese caramel bars. I have no idea why they're called that, because I don't see anything possibly Chinese about them, and there's no caramel in them. Basically, it's a yellow cake, very thin yellow cake, topped with meringue. And what's kind of fun about this is you put the batter in a pan, cover the batter with some crushed chopped pecans, then put the meringue on top of the batter, and then bake it. So it comes out of the oven already frosted. Just have to wait for it to cool down somewhat and then cut it up. It's a unique dessert. I've never seen this, so I wanted to try this today. So I don't know what I'm going to call these. I'm not going to call them Chinese caramel bars. I'll find a name for them before I publish it. But let's make this dessert today. To start my cake batter, I have here 4 ounces, 113 grams of butter. This is salted because I know the butter here isn't really high in salt. If the butter in your area is high in salt, use unsalted butter. And then I have 1/2 cup, this is 100 grams of granulated sugar. And I'm going to cream these two together. So your butter needs to be at room temperature, obviously. Okay, so that looks smooth there. You want to cream the butter and the sugar together until they're smooth. I am in the meantime heating my oven up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is 177 degrees Celsius. Now I have here 2 egg yolks. The whites I reserved for the meringue, and then 1 whole egg. And I want to blend these together. I'm going to switch over to my mixer in a moment here, but I'm going to do that right now. I have here a battery-powered mixer. All right, that looks well blended. Next, I want to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and again using my eyedropper bottle here. Each one of these is a 1/4 teaspoon, so I know I'm getting a full teaspoon in there. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Now, this next part is a bit tricky. The recipe calls for 1 cup of sifted all-purpose flour. Now I know a cup of sifted flour is going to weigh anywhere between 4 to 4.5 ounces. That's 113 to 128 grams. I've got 4 ounces here. I've got another 1/2 ounce set aside if I need it. So I'm going to put that in there, my 4 ounces. And then this is 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I have 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then finally 3 tablespoons of milk. And I'll work all this in, and I'll see what my texture looks like. If I need to, I'll add more flour. And then I'm going to scrape my bowl down one time. I actually like this texture right now without adding more flour. I might just leave it at 4 ounces. Okay, there is my batter. I'm not going to add any more flour. I like that the way that it is. I prepared a 9" by 9", which is 24 by 24 centimeters. A 9" by 9" cake pan. The original recipe called for a 9 by 12. But I thought the cake was a little bit too thin, so I'm using a slightly smaller pan here. And I'm going to put my cake batter in there. If you can hear that, yes, that's a plane going overhead. It's kind of noisy here today. And then distribute that in the bottom. It's still going to make a thin, cakey bottom, but this recipe doesn't make cake. It makes bars, so you don't want it too thick. I sprayed this pan with nonstick spray, and then I lined it with parchment paper and then sprayed it again. I like parchment paper for things like this because it'll make it easier to get the cake out afterwards. Before I put the meringue on top, though, I need to put pecans on here. This is 1 cup or 125 grams of chopped pecans, and I want to sprinkle this over the surface. You could use walnuts if you wanted to. The original recipe called for pecans. Just kind of give this a nice, this doesn't have to be too perfect because we're going to be putting meringue over the top. Okay. Pat that down a little bit. All right, there's my pecans in there. Now I can work with my meringue. I have here 2 egg whites from large eggs. I'm going to put in a very clean stainless steel bowl. You don't want any fat, butter, oil, grease on your whisk and on your bowl because that'll retard or inhibit the egg whites from forming stiff peaks. This is 1/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and this is 4 teaspoons of light brown sugar. 4 tablespoons, I'm sorry. I want to first whip this up till it's frothy. Okay, that's frothy. Put my cream of tartar in there. And then I want to start incorporating my sugar a little at a time and bring this up to stiff peaks. And by the way, these egg whites are at room temperature. Supposedly cold egg whites take longer to whip up and they don't hold a peak as well as room temperature egg whites. All right, let's see what I've got there. Look at that, how nicely that holds a peak. That's good. That's beautiful. This meringue was where I felt the original recipe was wrong. It called for 1 3/4 cup of light brown sugar for 2 egg whites. And I thought, that's just not going to hold stiff peaks. And sure enough, as I worked in all that sugar, the meringue just collapsed on itself. The weight of all that sugar just pulled it down. It remained a liquid. You need a minimum of about 2 tablespoons of sugar per egg white. I believe you can go up to as high as 1/4 cup if I read correctly online. I did some research on making meringue. Not a lot of sugar. Before I use my meringue, there's one thing that I need to do. I need to flavor it. And this requires 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I know my dropper here holds 1/4 teaspoon. I'm just going to work that in, and that should be done. Beautiful, nice stiff peaks. I like that. I'm going to be piping the meringue on top, which I'll be explaining that in a minute. I like Alton Brown's method of working with a piping bag. Just put it in a Ziploc bag and then save the tip, but you don't have to clean out a piping bag. And now here is my meringue. Lightly put that in there. And now what I want to do is I want to pipe the meringue on the top. The first time I tried this, I tried spreading the meringue on the top, and the meringue would sometimes lift the pecans up into the meringue, and I would just as soon not do that. So I think this will make it easier to work with. I'm just going to put dollops on the top here. If I have to, I can mix up some more. Finishing up here, I did have to whip up some more egg whites. There wasn't quite enough to finish here. Let me make sure I fill some of these empty spaces since I have the extra egg white. And I think that is ready to go into the oven. Yeah, no point in fussing over it all day. Now I'm going to bake this for a total of 30 minutes. Okay, hopefully you're going to love the looks of this. See, there's the cake. And it already is frosted. That's what I like about this recipe. It's like I don't have to frost this. It comes out of the oven pre-frosted. It looks beautiful. Now we just have to wait for this to cool down, and I can see how good it tastes. While I'm waiting for this cake to cool, I thought I would talk about a correction or an adjustment I'm going to make to the recipe when I write it up for my website. For one, I didn't have enough meringue for the top, and you saw that I didn't use that additional ½ ounce of flour that I had measured for the recipe. So I'm going to add one more egg to the recipe when I write it up. The extra egg white, the 3 egg whites now, will give me enough meringue for the top, and the moisture from that additional egg yolk in the batter should incorporate that final ½ ounce of flour. I transferred my cake to a platter that a friend gave me, and let's see, I still have that parchment paper underneath, so this might be a little bit tricky to get the first piece off. No, look at that, it's sliding right off. That is beautiful. Very nice. And there's my first piece of cake. Last step is to see how good this tastes. Okay, Bryson, let's see how good your Chinese caramel bars taste. They look good. Yeah. That's good. A nice mild yellow cake. The meringue came out perfect, so that's excellent. Excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy. I don't know what I'm going to call these yet. Something. I'm going to go enjoy my treat. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.